Jack Miller drove his old pickup truck down the dusty road toward the government auction site. The summer heat made waves rise from the cracked asphalt. Jack wiped sweat from his forehead with a dirty rag. Times were tough for the 30-year-old scrapyard worker. The big recycling company from the city had taken most of his business. Now he was down to his last few dollars. He parked among the other vehicles at the abandoned military storage facility. A banner hung across the chain link fence. Everything must go, all items sold as is. Jack stuffed his last dollar bill into his pocket and walked toward the crowd. Might find something worth fixing up, he muttered to himself. The auctioneer, a plump woman named Denise White, stood on a small platform. She pointed at various items as workers moved them forward, old filing cabinets, damaged office chairs, and crates of miscellaneous equipment. Next item, Denise called out, unknown storage container, possible aerospace scrap, starting bid $1. The workers pushed forward a strange-looking metal crate. It was about the size of a small car, but shaped like an egg. The surface was covered in rust and strange markings. Nobody in the crowd seemed interested. Anyone? $1 for this. Whatever it is, Denise said, checking her clipboard with confusion. Item not in original inventory. Must have been left in the back lot. Jack looked at the unusual container. Something about the markings caught his eye. They didn't look like any military code he recognized. He raised his hand. $1 from the gentleman in the back. Denise pointed at Jack. Going once, going twice, sold for $1. A few people chuckled. One man patted Jack on the shoulder. Good luck hauling that piece of junk home, buddy. Jack approached the payment table and handed over his last dollar. Denise gave him a receipt and ownership papers. You sure got yourself a bargain, she said with a laugh. Oh, maybe we did, saving on disposal fees. Jack arranged with one of the workers to help load the container onto his truck. The metal object was surprisingly light for its size. They secured it with straps, and Jack drove carefully back to his small property on the edge of the Nevada desert. His place wasn't much. A small house with a large yard full of salvaged items he hoped to fix and sell someday. He backed the truck up to his work shed and used a makeshift ramp and winch to slide the container down. The sun was setting as Jack examined his purchase more closely. The markings were like nothing he had ever seen. Not Chinese, Russian, or any language he recognized. He ran his fingers over what looked like a seam in the metal. What the heck are you? He whispered. Jack grabbed his tools and tried to find a way to open the container. Normal methods didn't work. There were no visible bolts, screws, or handles. After an hour of trying, Jack sat on an old tire, frustrated. He noticed one area where the markings clustered together. On a hunch, he pressed his palm against it. To his shock, the metal warmed under his touch, and a line of light appeared along the seam. Whoa! Jack jumped back as the container made a hissing sound. Air escaped from the opening seam, air that smelled strange, like ozone and something sweet he couldn't place. The top half of the container slowly lifted. Jack grabbed a crowbar, not sure what to expect. When the container fully opened, he dropped. The tool with a clang dot inside were 7 pod-like chambers arranged in a circle. Each pod was filled with a clear, gel-like substance. And floating in each pod was a woman, but they weren't ordinary women. Their skin had a faint blue tint. Their faces were almost human, but slightly off, larger eyes, no visible ears, and small, gill-like structures on their necks. They appeared to be sleeping or unconscious. Oh my God, Jack whispered, backing away. Oh my God. He rushed into his house and grabbed his phone, calling the only person he trusted with something this crazy. Frank Lopez arrived 20 minutes later. The former Navy technician had been Jack's best friend since high school. Frank's truck skidded to a stop in the yard, and he jumped out, looking worried. This better be good, man. I was in the middle of dinner with Carrie, Frank said. Following Jack to the shed, when Frank saw the open container and its contents, he froze. Holy ... those what I think they are? If you think they're aliens, then yeah, Jack said, his voice shaking. I bought this thing for $1 at the military auction. Nobody knew what was inside. Frank approached cautiously, examining the pods without touching them. These look like stasis chambers of some kind. Life support systems? Are they alive? Jack asked. Frank pointed to small displays on each pod showing pulsing symbols. I think so. These readings are active. What do we do? Call the government? Jack asked. Frank shook his head. And tell them what? That you accidentally bought some aliens? Best case, they take them and you never find out what happens. Worst case, they think you stole classified material and throw you in prison. As they debated their next move, one of the pods began to flash with red lights. Symbols on its display changed rapidly. Something's happening, Frank said, stepping back. The gel in the pod began to drain through hidden vents. The blue-skinned woman inside twitched, her chest rising and falling more rapidly. I think she's waking up, Jack whispered. They watched in amazement as the pod's clear cover slid open. The woman's eyes fluttered, then opened wide. They were deep purple with no visible pupils. She gasped, taking in a sharp breath. Her gaze darted around wildly until it settled on Jack and Frank. Fear crossed her face and she tried to sit up, but seemed too weak. Jack stepped forward slowly, hands raised to show he meant no harm. It's okay, you're safe. The woman spoke, her voice musical but the words incomprehensible. She reached toward a small device attached to her wrist and pressed it. After a moment she spoke again. Where am I? Who are you? The words were accented, strangely but understandable. I'm Jack. This is Frank. You're on Earth, Jack said. Still not quite believing what was happening, the woman looked confused, then alarmed. The others? My sisters? They're here, Frank pointed to the other pods. Still sleeping, I think. Relief washed over her face. She tried again to sit up, and Jack carefully helped her. Her skin was cool to the touch. My name is Larissa, she said. We are a long way from home. Outside, the desert night grew darker. A shooting star streaked across the sky as Jack Miller realized his life would never be the same again. Larissa sat on an old chair in Jack's kitchen. Her movements were careful, as if she was still getting used to Earth's gravity. The small device on her wrist glowed softly as she spoke. Frank made coffee while Jack tried to make sense of everything. Our ship was damaged, Larissa explained. We had to escape our world. The emergency systems put us in deep sleep and set course for the nearest habitable planet. Which is Earth, Jack said, still amazed by her presence. Larissa nodded. Our scouts visited your world many times over centuries. We knew humans existed here. Frank placed a mug of coffee in front of her. Careful, it's hot. Larissa sniffed the drink curiously, then took a small sip. Her face brightened. This is good, thank you. So why did you leave your planet? Jack asked. Sadness crossed Larissa's face. War. A terrible enemy attacked our world. Nellara's, our home was beautiful once. Now it is gone. I'm sorry, Jack said quietly. The 7 of us were chosen to preserve our people, Larissa continued. Each carries important knowledge. I am a navigator and pilot. Frank leaned forward. What about the others? When will they wake up? They need special care to wake safely, Larissa said. The pods keep them alive, but the awakening process is delicate. Too quick and they might not survive. Jack ran his hands through his hair. I don't understand how that container ended up at a government auction. Our ship must have crashed, Larissa said. The escape pod was designed to protect us during landing, even if it was rough. And somehow nobody noticed it was full of alien. Women? Frank asked. Larissa touched a symbol on her wrist device. The pod has security measures. It appears ordinary to most scanning technology. Only the right sequence opens it. Which I somehow triggered by accident, Jack said. The pod sensed compatible life and prepared for rescue, Larissa explained. You were chosen. Dawn was breaking outside. Jack stood up and stretched. We need to get back to the others. I'm worried about them sitting out there. They returned to the shed where the container lay open. The 6 women still floated in their gel-filled pods. Larissa moved to a control panel and studied the symbols. Thalia should be woken next, she said. She is our scientist. She will know how to help the others. Larissa pressed a sequence of symbols. The second pod began to glow with soft blue light. The gel drained away and the woman inside began to stir. This will take time, Larissa said. Her body must adjust slowly. While they waited, Frank stepped outside to make a phone call. He returned looking worried. I called my buddy at the auction site, Frank said quietly to Jack. Someone from the government was there asking questions about what you bought. Jack felt a chill. Already? How would they know? Security cameras, maybe, Frank suggested. But why would they care about a piece of junk nobody wanted? Unless they know it's not junk, Jack said. Inside the shed, a beeping sound came from the second pod. The cover slid open and the woman named Thalia sat up. Her skin had the same blue tint as Larissa's, but her eyes were deep green. She spoke. In the same musical language, Larissa responded, then turned to Jack and Frank. She is disoriented. This is normal. Thalia touched a similar device on her wrist. After a moment, she spoke in English. Where is our ship? How long have we slept? Your escape pod ended up on Earth? Jack explained. We don't know about any ship. Thalia looked alarmed. She spoke rapidly to Larissa in their language. Larissa's face grew serious. What's wrong? Frank asked. Thalia says the pod was not meant to separate from our main ship, Larissa explained. Something went very wrong. Thalia stood up shakily. Her eyes darted around the shed, taking in every detail. This technology is primitive. What? Year is it by your calendar? Jack told her the date. Thalia and Larissa exchanged concerned looks. We have been asleep for much longer than planned, Larissa said. The others must be awakened carefully, especially Kestra. Who's Kestra? Jack asked. Our protector, Thalia said simply. Outside, they heard the sound of vehicles approaching. Frank peeked through the dusty window. Black SUVs coming up the road, he said urgently. Government types, I bet. Jack's heart raced. What do we do? Larissa moved quickly to the control panel. We must hide the others. Thalia, help me activate the camouflage system. The two alien women worked rapidly, their fingers dancing over the symbols. The open container began to close. Wait, Jack said. What about you two? Too late to hide us, Larissa said. We will face them with you. Frank grabbed a shotgun from the wall. Jack shook his head. No guns. That'll just make things worse. The vehicle stopped outside. Car door slammed. Jack took a deep breath and stepped out of the shed. With Larissa and Thalia behind him, 4 men and a woman in dark suits approached. The woman stepped forward. She had short brown hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Jack Miller? She asked. I'm Agent Erica Campbell. We need to talk about what you purchased yesterday. Jack tried to look calm. Just some old container. Nothing special. Agent Campbell's eyes moved to Larissa and Thalia. She showed no surprise at their unusual appearance. I think we both know that's not true, she said. That container wasn't supposed to be at the auction. It's government property. I have the receipt, Jack said. I paid for it fair and square. This is beyond a simple purchase, Mr. Miller. Campbell said, this is a matter of national security. Frank joined them outside. You need a warrant to be on private property, Campbell smiled without warmth. We have one. She handed Jack an official-looking document. This authorizes us to reclaim any technology that belongs to the U.S. government. And if we refuse? Jack asked. Campbell nodded to her agents. They spread out, surrounding the shed. That would be unwise, Mr. Miller, Larissa stepped forward. We are not your property. We are refugees seeking asylum. Campbell looked surprised to hear Larissa speak English. So you're awake. Interesting. Our scientists said that wouldn't happen without special procedures. Jack felt a chill. Campbell's words confirmed his fears. The government knew about the aliens all along, Thalia whispered to Larissa. Something about their worried expressions made Jack nervous. Inside the shed, a loud beeping started. Campbell turned sharply. What's that? Trouble, Larissa said quietly. Kestra is waking up too soon. The beeping from inside the shed grew louder. Agent Campbell nodded to 2 of her men. Check it out. No, Larissa said firmly. It is not safe. Jack stepped between the agents and the shed door. You need to listen to her. Something dangerous is happening. A loud crash came from inside. Metal struck metal. One of the pod covers had been thrown across the shed. The agents drew their guns. Stand down, Campbell ordered, but her hand moved to her own weapon. The shed door burst open. A tall woman with the same blue-tinted skin as Larissa and Thalia stood in the doorway. Her eyes were pure black, with no whites showing. Her muscles were tense, ready to spring. Kestra, wait, Larissa called out in English. They are not all enemies. Kestra paused, her eyes darting from person to person. She spoke in their language, her voice deeper than the others. Thalia answered quickly, gesturing toward Jack and Frank. These two helped us. Kestra seemed to understand. She relaxed slightly but kept her gaze fixed on the agents with guns. Tell your people to lower their weapons, Jack said to Campbell. Before this gets ugly, Campbell hesitated, then nodded. Guns down, everyone. Let's keep this civil. The agents lowered their weapons slowly. Kestra watched every movement, still ready to attack if needed. We should talk inside, Campbell suggested, looking at the open road. Too exposed out here. Jack led everyone into his small house. It was cramped with so many people. Kestra refused to sit, standing with her back to the wall where she could see everyone. How many of you are awake? Campbell asked Larissa. 3 so far, Larissa answered. 4 more remain in sleep state, Campbell nodded. We've known about your crash for years. The pod was found in the desert back in 2018. Our scientists couldn't open it no matter what they tried. It is designed that way, Thalia explained. For our protection. The pod was stored in a secure facility, Campbell continued, until budget cuts forced some warehouses to clear out unidentified materials for auction. Someone made a huge mistake. Lucky for us, Jack said. Campbell gave him a sharp look. This is far bigger than you understand, Mr. Miller. These beings are not just aliens. They're refugees from an interstellar war. Frank leaned forward. How do you know that? Because we've encountered their enemy before, Campbell said grimly. The Draxery have sent scout ships to Earth 3 times in the past decade. Kestra tensed. At the name, she spoke rapidly to Larissa and Thalia. Their faces showed fear. The Draxery destroyed our world, Larissa told Jack. They will not stop until all Nelorisians are gone. Why? Jack asked. What did your people do to them? We existed, Thalia said simply. They believe the universe belongs only to them. Campbell stood up. We need to move you all to a secure facility. If the Draxery detect your pod, they might come looking. No, Jack said firmly. They stay here. This isn't a request, Mr. Miller. This is national security, I know, Jack interrupted. But they opened their pod for me, not for your scientists. Maybe there's a reason for that. Larissa touched Jack's arm gently. He is right. Our pod chose him as compatible. There is a connection. Fine, Campbell said after a moment. But we need security here, protection. Frank had been quiet thinking. Now he spoke up. I know a place better than this. My uncle Alan has an old mining facility in the mountains. Remote, defensible, with its own power generator. How far? Campbell asked. About 2 hours north, Frank replied. Nobody goes there anymore, Campbell considered this. We could set up a perimeter, monitor for unusual signals. When do we leave? Jack asked. Now, Campbell said. Pack what you need. We'll handle the pod transport. Jack grabbed a bag and threw in clothes and essentials. Through the window, he saw agents carefully loading the container with the remaining sleeping aliens onto a truck. Larissa approached him as he packed. Thank you for protecting us. I don't know if I can, Jack admitted. This is way beyond anything I've ever dealt with. You opened our pod when their scientists could not, Larissa said. That means something important. Outside, Campbell organized the convoy. 2 SUVs would lead, followed by the truck with the pod, then Jack's pickup with the awake aliens, and 2 more SUVs at the rear. As they prepared to leave, one of Campbell's agents approached her urgently. Ma'am, satellite picked up something. Entering Earth's atmosphere, small object, moving fast. Campbell's face hardened. How long? Impact in less than an hour. Trajectory puts it about 50 miles from here. Draxery scout, Kestra said, overhearing them. They have found us. Move out now, Campbell ordered. We need to be off the main roads before they land. The convoy sped away from Jack's property, kicking up dust clouds. In his truck, Jack drove with Lyrissa beside him. Thalia and Kestra sat in the back seat, watching the sky through the windows. What can these Draxery do? Jack asked. How dangerous are they? Very, Lyrissa said quietly. They have technology far beyond yours, weapons that can destroy cities. Great. Jack muttered. They turned off the highway onto a narrow mountain road. The truck with the pod struggled on the steep path, forcing the convoy to move slowly. There, Kestra said suddenly, pointing to the sky. A bright light streaked across the blue, leaving a trail of smoke. It disappeared behind distant hills. Minutes later, a faint boom reached them. They have landed, Thalia said. Campbell's voice came through a radio Frank had given Jack. Keep moving. Don't stop for anything. The mining facility came into view. As they rounded a curve, it was built into the mountainside, with metal buildings and a tall chain-link fence surrounding it. It looked abandoned, with dusty windows and faded signs. Frank used a key to open the gate, and the convoy drove inside. Agents immediately began setting up equipment and posting guards. The truck backed up to the main building, and they carefully moved the pod inside. Jack helped Lyrissa set up the control panel again. We must wake the others quickly now, Lyrissa said. We will need everyone if the Draxery find us. How long will it take? Jack asked. Hours, Thalia answered. Each awakening must be carefully managed. Campbell joined them, looking at a tablet with a satellite image. The object landed 37 miles southwest. We have teams headed there now. They will not find anything, Kestra said. Draxery scouts can move quickly and hide well. What exactly are we up against? Frank asked. Kestra's black eyes seemed to grow darker. Death, if they catch us. Outside, the sun began to set behind the mountains. Guards patrolled the perimeter with weapons ready. Inside the old mining facility, 3 aliens from a distant world prepared to wake their sleeping sisters, while Jack Miller wondered how his $1 purchase had turned his life upside down. Night fell over the mining facility. The old buildings creaked in the wind. Agents patrolled with night vision goggles, watching for any movement in the darkness. Inside the main building, Jack helped Lyrissa and Thalia prepare for the next awakening. This one is Valara, Lyrissa explained, pointing to the pod with a sleeping woman inside. She is our head scientist. She knows the most about the Draxery. The pod hummed as they started the awakening process. Kestra stood guard by the door, her body tense and alert. She had refused food and rest, focused only on protecting the others. Frank entered with maps of the area spread in his hands. I know these mountains well. There are old mining tunnels that connect to this facility. Could be escape routes if needed. Agent Campbell was on a secure phone in the corner. Her voice was low, but Jack could tell she was arguing with someone. When she finished, she looked frustrated. My superiors want us to transport you all to a government facility, she told Lyrissa. I've bought us 12 hours by telling them we can't move the pod safely yet. Thank you, Lyrissa said. We need that time. Jack watched the pod where Valara slept. The blue-tinted woman inside had delicate features and long, silvery hair. The gel around her was draining slowly. Why were you 7 chosen? Jack asked. Lyrissa, out of all your people? Lyrissa's purple eyes looked sad. We represent the best hope for our species to continue. Each of us carries important knowledge or skills. Like what? Frank asked. Thalia knows our medical science. Kestra is our finest warrior. I can navigate space and pilot ships, Lyrissa explained. Valara knows our history and science. The others have equally important roles, the pod beeped softly. Valara's eyes fluttered. Open, unlike the others, she seemed calm upon waking. She spoke softly in their language. Thalia helped her sit up and handed her a translator device for her wrist. Valara studied the humans in the room with curious eyes. So this is Earth, she said when the translator activated. I have studied your world from our long-range observations. Campbell approached her. You know about Earth? We have watched many worlds, Valara said, looking for places that might welcome us if disaster came. She looked around. Where are the others? Still? Sleeping, Lyrissa told her. We are waking everyone as quickly as we can. The Draxery have found us. Valara's calm expression changed to worry. Already? Then we have little time. She stood up carefully, adjusting to Earth's gravity. Jack noticed she moved with grace despite just waking from long sleep. She went directly to the control panel of the pod. We must accelerate the process for the others, she said. It is risky but necessary. Will it hurt them? Jack asked. It might, Valara admitted. But the Draxery are a greater danger. She began working with the controls. 2 more pods started humming, their lights changing from blue to purple. The Draxery must have detected our pod when it opened, Valara said as she worked. They never stopped hunting us. Why? Jack asked. What makes your people so important to them? Valara looked at Lyrissa, who nodded. It seemed they were deciding whether to share a secret. We carry the future of Nelaris with us, Valara said finally. Not just knowledge, but genetic material from thousands of our people, enough to rebuild our species. Like a seed bank, Frank said, understanding. Yes, Valara confirmed. The Draxery want to make sure we never get the chance to use it. One of Campbell's agents rushed in. Movement. Detected 3 miles south. Something moving fast through the trees. Campbell grabbed her radio, all units on alert. Possible contact approaching from the south. Kestra moved to the window, her black eyes scanning the darkness. They are coming. How many? Campbell asked. Scout. Ships usually carry 3 warriors, Valara answered. They will be heavily armed. Campbell ordered her agents to defensive positions. She handed Jack a pistol. Know how to use this? Jack nodded, though he had only fired a gun a few times in his life. He felt the weight of it in his hand and hoped he wouldn't need to use it. The 2 pods that Valara had activated began to open. 2 more Nellarisian women awakened, looking confused. Thalia rushed to help them. Zara and Myra, Lyrissa told Jack. Zara is our agriculture expert. Myra preserves our art and culture. Outside, floodlights suddenly illuminated the perimeter. An agent shouted over the radio, Contact southeast corner. A high-pitched whining sound filled the air. One of the floodlights exploded in a shower of sparks. Gunfire erupted from multiple positions. Get down. Campbell shouted, pulling Jack away from the window. Kestra moved with incredible speed. She grabbed a metal bar from a nearby shelf and ran toward the door. Kestra, wait, Lyrissa called after her. She will fight, Valara said. It is her purpose. The remaining 2 pods began to activate without anyone touching them. Valara looked surprised. They sense the danger, she explained. The emergency protocols are activating. Jack heard more gunfire outside. A strange sizzling sound followed, then screams. The lights in the building flickered. What weapons do these Draxery have? Frank asked. Energy-based, Valara said. Your bullets will do little against their armor. A loud explosion rocked the building. Dust fell from the ceiling. Campbell's radio crackled with frantic voices reporting casualties. We need to move deeper into the facility, Campbell said. The old mine shafts might provide better cover. Jack helped the newly awakened aliens to their feet. They were still disoriented but understood the danger. Thalia gathered medical supplies while Lyrissa helped Valara with the final 2 pods. What about Kestra? Jack asked, worried about the warrior who had run outside. She will find us, Lyrissa assured him. She always does. They moved quickly through the building toward the entrance to the old mine shafts. Frank led the way with a flashlight, followed by the 5 awakened Nellarisian women. Then Jack and Campbell dot as they reached the heavy metal door leading to the mines. A blinding flash of light burst through the windows. The ground shook. Jack covered his eyes. When he looked again, part of the wall had been melted away. Standing in the gap was a tall figure in metallic armor. Its helmet had no visible face, just a smooth, reflective surface. In its hand was a weapon Jack had never seen before, glowing with energy. Draxery, Valara whispered in fear. The armored figure stepped forward. Behind it, two more identical figures appeared. Campbell raised her gun, but Jack knew it would be useless. They were trapped between the Draxery warriors and the mine entrance. Then a blur of movement came from the side. Kestra leaped through a window, landing on the first Draxery warrior. She struck its helmet with the metal bar, causing it to stagger. "Go!" she shouted to the others. "Run!" Frank pushed open the mine door. "This way!" Jack hesitated, not wanting to leave Kestra fighting alone. But Campbell pulled him through the doorway. "She's buying us time," Campbell said. "Don't waste it." The last thing Jack saw before the heavy door closed was Kestra fighting 3 Draxery warriors at once, moving faster than seemed possible. The old mine tunnels were dark and cold. Frank's flashlight cast long shadows on the rough walls. The group moved quickly, their footsteps echoing in the narrow passages. Jack stayed at the rear, looking back often, hoping to see Kestra following. These tunnels go for miles," Frank said. "My uncle mapped them years ago." He pulled out a folded paper from his pocket. "There's a large chamber ahead that was used for equipment storage. We can regroup there." The sounds of fighting grew distant behind them. Campbell tried her radio, but the signal couldn't penetrate the thick rock above them. "My agents," she said, worried. They weren't prepared for this kind of enemy. "Few are," Valara said softly. "The Draxery have destroyed many worlds." They reached the chamber Frank had mentioned. It was a large space with a high ceiling. Old mining equipment sat covered in dust. Frank found a generator and got it working. Dim lights flickered on. "What about the last 2? Jack asked, looking at Lyrissa. "You said there were 7 of you." "Ilara and Nira are still in their pods," Lyrissa answered. "Ilara is our communications expert. Nira holds our complete historical records." "And they're still back there with those Draxery," Jack said. Feeling sick, Valara placed her hand on a wall. Closing her eyes. "I can sense them. The pods are moving." "How?" Campbell asked. "Emergency protocols," Thalia explained. "The pods can move themselves short distances if threatened." Zara and Myra, the newly awakened aliens, sat together quietly. They were still, adjusting to being awake. Myra had silver eyes that seemed to glow in the dim light. Zara's hair was pure white despite her young appearance. "We need a plan," Frank said. "We can't stay here forever." Valara approached the center of the chamber. "I may have a solution." She removed a small device from her wrist, different from the translator. "This is a beacon. It can send a signal to any Nelorisian ships that might have survived." "Are there others?" Jack asked hopefully. "We don't know," Lyrissa admitted. "Our escape was chaotic. Other pods may have launched. The signal could also." "Alert more Draxery," Campbell warned. "It is a risk we must take," Valara said. She began adjusting the device. A noise from one of the tunnels made everyone freeze. Jack raised his gun, pointing it at the dark passage. Campbell did the same. A figure emerged from the shadows. It was Kestra, carrying 2 large pods that floated just above the ground. Her blue skin was marked with burns and cuts, but she was alive. "Kestra," Lyrissa rushed to help her. "The Draxery?" Campbell asked. "Delayed, not defeated," Kestra said, her voice strained. "I destroyed one. 2 remain." The floating pods settled on the ground. They began to open immediately. 2 more Nelorisian women emerged, already awake. The emergency situation had accelerated their revival process. Ilara had dark blue skin, almost purple, with gold-colored eyes. Nira was smaller than the others, with eyes that changed color as she looked around. Jack was amazed that all 7 aliens were now awake and together. They greeted each other in their musical language, touching foreheads in what seemed to be a sign of deep connection. "What happened to the pod?" Frank asked Kestra. "Destroyed," Kestra answered. "After these 2 were removed," Valara continued, working on her beacon. "Without our pod, this is our only hope." A distant rumbling sound reached them. "Dust fell from the ceiling. They're blasting their way through," Campbell said. trying to find us. Ilara, the communications expert, joined Valara with the beacon. Her hands moved quickly over the device, enhancing its power. We need more time, Ilara said. The signal must reach high orbit to be effective. Kestra picked up a piece of mining equipment, testing its weight. I will give you time. No, Jack said. You can't face them alone again. I must, Kestra replied. Simply, Campbell checked her gun. She won't be alone. My people are still out there. We'll hold them off together. Jack looked at Lyrissa. Their eyes met, and something passed between them, understanding that went beyond words. He had known her for less than a day, yet he felt connected to her in a way he couldn't explain. There's another way, Frank said suddenly. Uncle Alan. Use these mines for more than just metals. He tested explosives too, Frank pointed to a side tunnel. There's a storage room down there. If we can set charges in the right places, we could seal off the tunnels. Show me, Campbell said. Frank and Campbell hurried down the side passage. Jack stayed with the Narration women as they worked on the beacon. Almost ready, Ilara announced. The signal will be strong. Nira, who had been quiet until now, spoke to Jack. Your world will soon change forever. Are you prepared for that? Probably not, Jack admitted. But I don't think anyone could be. Nira smiled. Few are prepared for first contact. Yet here we are. Frank and Campbell returned carrying old boxes of explosives. They're still good, Frank said. We can set them at key points to block the main tunnels. They worked quickly, placing the explosives while Kestra stood guard at the main passage. The rumbling grew louder. The Draxery were getting closer. Beacon ready, Valara announced. Activating now. The small device glowed and emitted a high-pitched sound. Energy pulsed from it, passing through the rock above them as if it wasn't. There? How long? Jack asked. Unknown, Ilara answered. If any ships are near your system, they could receive it quickly. If not... Another blast shook the chamber. Rocks fell from the ceiling. Time to go, Campbell said. There's another exit on the far side. It leads to the surface about a mile from here. What about the explosives? Jack asked. Campbell held up a remote detonator. We'll trigger them once. We're safe. They moved toward the exit Campbell had mentioned. Kestra stayed behind, insisting on being the last to leave. As they reached the new tunnel, a blinding light filled the main passage. The two remaining Draxery warriors appeared, their armor glowing with energy. Go! Kestra shouted, charging toward them. Campbell pushed the detonator button. The explosives went off with a deafening roar. The tunnel behind them collapsed, cutting off the chamber from the Draxery and from Kestra. No, Lyrissa cried, trying to go back. Jack held her. We can't help her now, he said, though it pained him to say it. They hurried through the new tunnel. As more explosions echoed behind them, after what seemed like hours, they saw light ahead. They emerged onto the mountainside as dawn broke over the horizon. Campbell's radio crackled to life. Surviving agents reported that the mining facility was completely destroyed. No sign of the Draxery or Kestra. The 7 women, now 6, without Kestra, stood together looking at the sky. The beacon continued to pulse in Valara's hand. What now? Jack asked Lyrissa. Before she could answer, Ilara pointed upward. Look. A bright light appeared in the morning sky, too large to be a star, moving in a controlled descent. Is it more Draxery? Frank asked, alarmed. Lyrissa shook her head, her purple eyes filled with tears of joy. No, it's Narration. We are not alone. The light grew larger, revealing the outline of a ship unlike anything Jack had ever seen. It was beautiful, with flowing lines that seemed almost alive. Our people survived, Valara whispered. They found us. As the ship descended toward the mountain, Jack realized his life had changed forever. His $1 purchase had not only introduced him to beings from another world, but had also helped save the last remnants of an ancient civilization. Lyrissa took his hand. Thank you, Jack Miller. You gave us a second chance? Jack squeezed her hand gently. What happens now? Now, Lyrissa said, looking at the approaching ship and then back at Earth, their new home, we begin again, together.